here we are at NAB 2022. I am at the Hedge booth talking to Paul, who is the founder and CEO of Hedge. And I wanted to talk to these guys because, first and foremost, they make some incredibly useful tools for us in post-production. And I include Hedge, which is the file transfer app. Is it file transfer app? What's the correct terminology?
Data management, offloader, backup app. People call it a downloader, so whatever works for you.
So a very important tool often for post-production to get the media off of all these things that are brought from the set onto your RAID, onto your shared storage. They're also PostLab, which is a remote collaboration tool for Final Cut and Premiere, which includes PostLab Drive, which is the online cloud storage. And now with the acquisition of Divergent Media, was it an acquisition? Is that the right term?
It was.
We get Edit Ready as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on there.
And Scopebox.
That's right, Scopebox, which is the one of the early, it may have been the first software scope. Is that correct? Yeah. Divergent Media is standing right there. The first software scope tool way back in the day. So give us a little rundown of what did you guys bring to the show here?
Green carpet, obviously.
I think we're going to putt on that later.
And a lot of people. It's been a wild few years without NAB. So we used to be 5 people previous NAB. Now it's 25, so we brought out quite a large crew and to demo all the products. And it used to be just one app that we had with Hedge, and then with PostLab, and now it's this range of 5 apps across the workflows.
Let's talk about those 5 apps in a second. I mean, one thing I like about Hedge is it's a small company. Like you mentioned, it was just 5 folks that saw a hole in the market and built a product into that hole, and now it has grown into a range of these 5 products. So run down what these five things are that encompasses the Hedge dynasty.
Yeah, so you start, when you shoot your data, you need to offload it first. So you do that with Hedge, then you have your backup sorted out, then you might need to transcode, so you do that with Edit Ready. Then when you're done transcoding, you go into the edit, and that's what you do with PostLab, if you work together with people or you're working on your own in different locations. And when you're done with that, then you need to archive all the data, and if you do that to tape, then you can use Canister, or you use Hedge if you do that to backups, but most people do it to tape nowadays because it's pretty cheap.
You're talking LTO tape. So Canister is an interface for LTO tape.
Yeah.
And does that work with all off-the-shelf LTO systems?
Yes. And it not only works with it ships with the leading 3 brands as well.
Gotcha.
And then there's Scopebox for QC during grading, but also during the IT work. And that's the whole range from offloading to quality control.
So Hedge is strictly a software company. You guys don't make any hardware products. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
And I find this fascinating sometimes. Is that a conscious choice? I'm sure that moving into hardware could be this massive mound of craziness that is a whole other thing when it comes to software and creating hardware.
It's just as crazy. From day one, we actually have side projects that dabble with hardware. So one time we built a 7-slot card reader just to see how that went, how fast we could get it. We've done card readers for Synology that might even come to market at some point. We showed them a few shows ago. And we wanted to get a sense of what is the difference between software and hardware. It just comes down to the level of detail, and that's just as high in both sides of the market, if you will. So we might do the hardware someday. We'll see. One of the things we've been wanting to do for ages is bring Scopebox to an iPad, and that will require a piece of hardware. So who knows?
It's a cool idea.
And then,
Because I think a common usage for something like Scopebox would be to use your iPad with a a duet display, or it's a second monitor or third monitor in that case, and then just plop Scopebox on that display. But it's using the iPad as another display. So that would be some interesting advantages to being able to make it.
If you would do it as a second display, that would performance-wise wouldn't be the best. It would be better to run it natively. So that's what we prefer to do. But then you'll need a dongle of some kind.
So when you have to work with other partners like LucidLink that does PostLab Drive, or if you had to do something like this with other hardware manufacturers, how is that process, being a small company, interfacing with big hardware manufacturers versus something like an Adobe or any other big company? Do you find the doors open well for a small company like yours?
Yeah, I think the way we built Hedge with real attention to detail and to a super slim, easy to use UI opened a lot of doors. A lot of vendors see that it has value, and that we would pay the same attention to whatever we do together with them, and that works pretty well. It tends to be getting started with hardware tends to be a lot slower, It takes more time to run up, but with software, it's the other way around. It takes way longer to finesse. So, and it never stops with software. That's the thing. If you build hardware, you ship it, it's done. With software, you're never done.
Yes, and you get people like myself who's constantly asking for new things and talking about what's not right and why how something could be better. And I apologize for that.
No, it's great actually, and that's what we do with every user. We get heaps of feedback and questions and workflow questions, and we use that all to carve out the next generation of the products continuously. And that's what has helped us to do so many updates a year. So we do typically every app gets 4 updates a year. And that's only because we get a lot of feedback and useful workflow.
Is that your own internal schedule you try to keep, or is that just sort of like as the work comes in, if we see we need one, it just happens to be normally 4?
Like when we started out, it was just 2 of us. Then it was sort of like, let's do sprints, 2-week sprints, 3 weeks. But now it's 25 people, and most of them are devs. And then you really need a structure to make sure you actually ship stuff, because something is never ready. Yeah. So you have to decide when to ship it, and then you have to decide when you want to polish it, as we call it.
Yep.
So it's an ongoing process all the time.
So let's wrap this up with like, what's the last few updates? Like, what's the newest stuff that you've brought here to the
Sure.
fore?
So Hedge got an Iconic integration together.
And Iconic is?
Iconic is a cloud MAM. Yep. So if you're offloading, then ideally when you bring the media into Iconic later on, you also want it to travel with your metadata, because in Iconic you would define what type of metadata you would need for a project. So Hedge asks you for the metadata that you defined using presets. For the pro users, that means we have a website where you can actually create a preset, so you don't have to do it in Hedge itself. Canister now has full Mac Store support, so all users that have a Mac Store drive, we handle all the driver installation, system kernel extensions, which is a bit of a mess on a Mac nowadays. So that's helpful. Edit Ready gained Sony support, full Sony support for Sony RAW and XOCN. So that's a big one actually for us. That's been one we've been wanting to do for years.
The formats never stop.
Exactly. Well, and XOCN is a special one, so it took a lot of work. But also in Edit Ready new is color awareness. Let's say you're mixing cameras and your favorite log is log C, then a lot of transcoding software simply slaps on log C on that. We do the actual math that the original vendor, like say you're mixing ARRI and BMD, we do the proper transforms for BMD first and then make it log C in the sense that ARRI wanted it to be.
Gotcha.
So that's a big one actually, and it just works in it already. You don't actually see it that much. It's a setting, but it works. But it's pretty revolutionary, we think. And then last but not least, PostLab has gained remote locking for Avid on Windows. So we're the only product that can do bin locking in the cloud for Avid, and that. Now we brought that technology to Windows, and we're also bringing local locking to Windows and Mac. So you don't have to remote lock a cloud drive, but you can also lock your NAS or your Samba.
Gotcha. And so bringing up Windows, is Hedge, is it Windows or just Mac only?
No, it's completely on par on Windows, and we're bringing every app to Windows now slowly.
There you go, you heard it first. Even though we've got new, nice, shiny Mac studios out in the world, there's a lot of Windows.
We're doing Canister for Windows first. That need is very large because there's actually no LTFS app on Windows. And then we, with remote locking on Windows, that PostLab is coming there too. And we're slowly building up that feature set, and then the rest will follow at some point in the future years. We actually think it's part of we have a no vendor lock-in policy, so everything we do, we don't create databases. We want it to be as easy to use our products, to start using it as to stop using it. And part of that is also that we feel it's pretty weird that if you have a license for something and you buy a PC instead of a Mac for reasons, that you also have to rebuy the software. Yep. So our licenses are always cross-platform.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's something people don't think about sometimes if they do switch platforms, even if you do go from Windows to Mac, which people do sometimes. Right. All right, there's Hedge Force. Good luck. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you at the next NAB, assuming we get to come back.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm also here with Mike from Hedge, who's also Divergent Media for years and years and years. Scopebox and Edit Ready. And he is now your company is now part of Hedge. Was it like an acquisition or I don't even know, how does that kind of stuff work? Just like cash under the table or what?
No, we wanted to have the ability to grow, and so this seemed like a great pairing. I mean, they have the same attention to detail for software, and so it seemed like a good fit. So we've been talking to Paul for a long time, and it seemed like the right time to do it.
Here we are. So Edit Ready is a very fast transcoding tool. You can apply metadata. You can add LUTs. There's a lot of little stuff you can do as you transcode the material, either for low-res offline proxies. You could even make full-res new camera originals as an editor. I love to get full new ProRes camera originals from certain formats that are hard to edit. So Edit Ready has always kind of been known to be super fast. How do you engineer a piece of software to transcode something faster than another tool that may also transcode? It seems like everybody would be the same.
Well, I mean,
you don't have to give away any secrets, but give me some secrets.
I mean, so the lineage of it, Edit Ready comes from ClipWrap, which originally came from Scopebox, and Scopebox is real-time scope. So we were always developing with the real-time barrier. Everything had to happen within a frame. So
Wait, when it came from, Scopebox is a tool that displays scopes as the software, as the clips run through it. They seem two totally different things. I don't understand what you mean by it came from. They seem so different.
ClipWrap was an offshoot. They share the same media engine in the background, all of the processing, and so we've always had to create very performant code, and so that comes with whenever we make a new app. And so Edit Ready is metal through and through. We've worked really hard to include the hardware acceleration that the new Apple Silicons. With the M1 Pro, Max, and Ultra, we've got hardware accelerated ProRes encode and decode, and we'll use all of those cores. Basically, any silicon we can find on that chip that we can abuse for doing video, we will do that.
Is that a thing where, when Apple introduced their new chips, or say Windows introduces some new chip, do they give you tools to be able to go in and say, all right, here's how to work with this? Or is it, you, as a software engineer, you say, they're all the same, I just have to retool my software to work with it?
We're very Mac-centric on the Edit Ready side still, but it behooves Apple to make sure that people can use ProRes as quickly as possible. So that was not a hard lift for us. But some of the other codecs we've had to, there's a lot of hardware acceleration designed for web video, and a lot of cameras can be forced into that pipeline if you work hard enough. So that's what we've done.
So let me ask you a question on Scopebox and Edit Ready. Scopebox, again, is software scopes. Edit Ready is a transcoding application. If you go into Resolve or Premiere or Avid, you can transcode and you have scopes. What do you say to people when they say, I don't need those products because I already have them built into the NLE that I'm using?
In some cases that may be true, but the ethos of everything at Hedge is small, discrete, a la carte apps that you can plug into a larger workflow. And so, you can do dailies in Resolve, but you may not want your assistant editor doing dailies in Resolve. With all of that flexibility comes a lot of room for user error. And so what we've really done with Edit Ready is taken out all of the settings and the preferences and everything that we can automatically discern from that camera metadata. All you do is tell us, we want ProRes 422, in this color space, in this frame size, this frame rate. Every single camera that we support, we will figure out the most performant, best quality pathway to that mezzanine or daily format.
And I would add that it seems like when you take it to a small software developer, you're very focused and targeted on this one particular task, as opposed to, Premiere has Media Encoder, which is a separate app, but yet they have to do so much more to, because it is part of the whole suite. So being targeted, with Scopebox, you've got a lot of customization options, and there's more scopes and more little tools in there than you get with something like in Premiere or Avid.
Exactly. We've been forced to find a niche at this point. So, we've really tried to turn that into a tool specifically for creative interpretation of your images. So we're not just making engineering scopes. We're not just adding, you basically have to throw scopes into every software package now.
Yeah.
But that's just a checkbox for most companies. Where for us, we've spent over 10 years polishing this just because it's what we do.
Yep. Well, there you go. There's Divergent Media, now part of Hedge. It's been how long now? It's been
under about 8 months, I think.
Okay. So I thought it was quite new, but with the pandemic, who knows time anymore. So there you go. So congratulations. I'm glad that you had the acquisition, and we look forward. What's to come?
It's great. Yeah. Thank you.